I'm back with the girls. I've got Sophie and Emily. Plenty to talk about as we look ahead to the second legs of the UEFA Women's Champions League semi-finals. Oh, cannot wait to get into these two guys. And I know I'm tempted to go with the all-French showdown first, but we have to start with our girl Emma Hayes and Chelsea. We said we were trying to think of all the best scenarios for them to possibly get something at Barcelona. Notice I said possibly. And they only went and did it. Emma Hayes said that you have to be perfect to get anywhere close to even beating Barcelona. Anywhere close, but they did it. A 1-0 narrow victory. But Sophie, let me start with you on this one. Would you say it was the perfect game all around from Chelsea?
I think Chelsea feel that they probably should have had a second goal. A little bit more of a cushion. But this is one of the best performances we've seen from Chelsea in a long time. We've seen some good attacking performances this season, but this was so disciplined in defence. This was so... They stuck to their guns. They stuck to their markers. They frustrated the absolute hell out of Barcelona. You can see the host was so afraid. But it was a perfect game plan from Emma Hayes.
And what about you? Because I know deep down inside your family bleeds blue, and this was a result that even you struggled to find the hope in. But Chelsea went and did it.
Yeah, I think, like Soph said, it was a really good performance. I think we probably haven't seen the cohesion from Chelsea that we would have wanted to see. I think you look at the losses they've had, and it has interrupted their season, but it was just such a good performance. You could see that on the wings as well, the pace was really frustrating them, the balls over the top. They just didn't really know what to do, and I think we kind of pinpointed it last week that Barca's defence aren't as great as they have been before, and you could just see they were getting frustrated, and actually the goal did come from, I think it was Paredes gave the ball away, and they pounced on it and how quick they were to react. Chelsea were not letting anything go through the cracks. They knew how important that was to take something back to Stamford Bridge, and they deserve that win. And I think it's massive I think it was since 2019, Barca have never lost at home. Since 2018, have they kept the clean sheet at home? It's incredible, when you look at the bigger picture of that game, that how good actually Chelsea were.
I was going to say, it was so many records that Chelsea beat that I don't think going in, any of us really expected them to do that. And as you said, so convincingly, an all-round team performance there for that one. Bit surprised with the result there that Barcelona didn't have more of a sting, especially at home.
For as good as Chelsea were, Barcelona, I can't remember ever seeing Barcelona play so badly. Right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a nice way to sort of describe it without using expletives. But they stunk up the place, right?
Yeah.
I mean, part of that is down to Chelsea being so good, but you've got Alexis with a shot right at the desk. Middle of the box, she can't even get it on target. I think that kind of typifies the game for Barcelona. Everything went wrong. They had one shot. They barely could create. They just couldn't get through the back five. Chelsea was slowing it down. You have Aitana after the game coming out saying, they're using these tactics. Barcelona face those tactics all the time. Spain face those tactics all the time. That was how frustrated they were that she's talking about this. And yeah, it's dreadful game from Barcelona. But yeah.
I love that she brought up what Aitana said, because it's rare to see Barcelona rattled, but Chelsea got under their skin. So is that now the momentum shift with Chelsea going into Stamford Bridge?
I think completely. I think actually it was probably the worst thing, because kind of Barcelona have showed that this has really shocked them. They did not expect for it to crumble how it did, and you would never expect a team that has been in such good form to perform like that. But these things happen, and we've seen it with every other team in the world that they could have the best run of form and one game will completely throw them. So I think going into this game, you will never... I think it would be silly to say that Barcelona are then not going to come out fighting, that this is going to have shook them, that they're not going to rebound in some way, because actually they're going to be hurt from that.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost a little bit more scary than if they were playing, if it was a draw and they were then,
more comfortable.
Yeah. Whereas... But I do think if you look at it from Emma Hayes' perspective, it's a confidence boost. It's massive to be able to go to Barcelona's backyard and walk out with a win. So I think it does probably shift it more towards Chelsea's favour. But I think it will really come down to how hurt are Barcelona and how are they going to get their tactics right. Because, if Chelsea set up the same way, will Barca have learned how to deal with that? I don't know. But yeah, I think Nuskin, Cuthbert and JRK were really, really good, and props to them, because they probably don't get as much credit as those three deserve.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to get inside the Barcelona mind, because if we saw on Instagram, Lucy Bronze posted a photo and she just called it halftime, because in the bigger picture, this really is halftime, and that gives you an idea that Barca are kind of a bit shocked and hurting from this one. And when you do back a wounded animal in a corner, they come out fighting for their lives. And that is scary when you think of Barcelona. In terms of tactics now from the Barca perspective, to bring the momentum back in their court at Stamford Bridge in front of a very, very blue crowd, we know, and it will be a boisterous crowd that now believes more than ever that they could pull this off and at least get Emma Hayes to Champions League final. Sophie, what do Barca do?
They take a shot. They that was something they really didn't do the other day. They've got Levante Las Palmas in the midweek this week, so I actually worry about how much they're going to come out fighting against Levante Las Palmas. But I just think even the subs that Jonathan made weren't necessarily the right ones because players were so out of it. I think it's just finding they've got to find a balance where they can keep players involved. So I think that was a big part of it. Was like Caroline Graham-Hansen was taken out of the game, but you've got Salma Panuelo who's in it, but is just she's not really doing what she should be with the ball. She's a bit off target, so it's just about making sure that everyone is playing to their best strengths, and that they put last week behind them, they reset, and we've seen with Barcelona as well, in losing the 2 Champions League finals to Lyon, that really helped them sort of gain some sort of the mentality they hadn't had before. Yeah. So they needed to lose to win, basically. I think
a wake-up call.
Yeah, I think this will help them, but yeah, I think Chelsea are going to leave it all out there as well, so it's a very tough one.
Interestingly, for the game this evening, when Barcelona is released, who's available, Salma and Bonmati aren't available tonight, both saying that they're out. I believe it was injury, but whether they're just resting them for the weekend, I don't know. But
they also did have to pick up some awards recently.
Yeah, so I was like, well, maybe if the pair of them aren't available for the weekend, that would change things. But similarly with Hayes and Bright, said Hayes isn't available, that she's on the bench. So
mind games.
Called that one, but.
Love it. In terms of tactics, and Emily, you kind of agree with Sophie, because it's not Barcelona don't like to deviate from their DNA and their identity very much. Whether it's the men or women's team, we know Barcelona's identity is something that's respected around the world. But when it's not working, and when a team figures it out and can really frustrate you and be stronger defensively, as well as we saw Chelsea do, what do? Because they probably will come up against that at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I think it will probably be tweaks to the tactics. I think their overall game plan has worked so consecutively that changing that completely with not a lot of time to adjust to it will probably be the wrong approach. So I think slight tweaks to it will probably help. I think they've got to find a way to free up Caroline Graham-Hansen. She was so important for so long, and when she is contained, you can see a lot of their play just struggles. Getting her involved in the game, if there's anything they can do mid-game or ahead of the game to make sure that she's able to get on the ball, I think would change a lot of things. And I think similarly, like what Soph said, there are players like, I felt like Claudia Pina, it's a perfect game to bring her on. She runs at everything. She's a really instinctive player. And to not bring her on even at a point where, she could get on the ball or even try and set up players. We've seen her do it so many times in the league that was strange to me. So I do wonder if we could see a couple of personnel changes just to try and really pepper that back line and get something in there. But I really don't know. I would love to know what Jonathan is thinking at this point, going like, what do I do with this? And where do I change? But I don't think we'll see a lot of changes, if I'm honest.
Well, speaking of changes, do you guys want to change your original predictions? I believe both of you were leaning towards the Catalan side, but now
you were leaning towards Chelsea.
She was slightly leaning towards Chelsea.
I didn't want to go all guns. Yeah, I didn't want to go all guns blazing and go, I'm full Chelsea. But
are you feeling the momentum?
I am feeling full Chelsea. At this point, I'm going to back Emma Hayes. I'm going to come out and say it that I think this is the perfect setup to proper get to that final. I think there's about 32 and a bit thousand tickets sold. Like they're nearing on a sellout crowd. I think all the stars are aligning for it to be a Chelsea win, and I'd love for it to be a bit of a fairy tale. So I'm gonna put my money on Chelsea.
Sticking with Barca.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea did. I think that if they are as resolute, if they can get a goal, then it's a little bit more, because we know that last season as well, Barca didn't blow them out of the water at home.
Yeah.
So I think Barca have it in them, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we see Chelsea in the final.
Right, well, let's move on to the second semi-final, because that one was equally as entertaining. Sophie came so close to getting at least halfway for her overall prediction, which was a PSG upset. You know, it's two teams in PSG and Lyon that, as we've established, know each other probably better than some of us know some of our family members. But in this one, PSG definitely came out fighting, but the mentality of Lyon. Sophie, just your thoughts on it. And when you saw PSG just with that nice heavy, well, I don't want to say a heavy lead, but against Lyon, you probably are fancying your chances when you're 2-0 up, right?
I mean, 75 minutes in, I'm thinking, well, my predictions are half, right? But I'll take that. You know, PSG were creating. They had two really good chances to make it 3-0, and then after those, they went defensive. I'm going to throw out a deep cut: Mexico versus the Netherlands, 2014 World Cup. If people remember that, it was they went far too negative, far too early. They let Lyon have the ball. They let them attack them. Lyon made some great subs, and some of the best we've seen from Bon Pastor with how they worked. And PSG. It was a bit naive. They fell apart, and 6 minutes to 3 goals from Lyon.
Same old story, which you definitely predicted, and I know you were so tempted to jump on Sophie's bandwagon as well, because we know what PSG can do for sure, and they have matured and grown over the last couple of years. But as you said, it was just Lyon. They know what to do, especially in the Champions League.
I think that's the thing. Like, especially recently, it's all Barcelona. It's all we talk about is Barcelona being this powerhouse, but for so long, so many years before that, it was Lyon. And Lyon have had such a deep history in the competition that they've always just found a way to figure things out. And I think I said it last week that I think they would, and they did show it, that anything PSG can conjure, they somehow can rebuttal it.
Yeah.
And I think it was almost like we were saying earlier that, you know, when you're backed in a corner, you're going to come out fighting. And I think that was similar with Lyon, that they looked at it and probably went, we physically can't go into this next side 2-0 down. Like, those odds, we can't have them. And just something clicked. And I think it's probably a bit disappointing for PSG that the floodgates opened so rapidly, so quickly, because they held a really strong defence for so much of that game. But I think at times you can't really count Lyon out of the game. And it was just it was a really interesting comeback, because I wasn't watching it. I watched it back afterwards, but it was just the notifications coming up. Another one. Oh, okay. So
seen this story before. It's a story that I always say I've seen before, especially when watching Real Madrid's men's team in the Champions League. Even when they're not the best team, they still find a way to get it done. And Lyon as well, they are that mentality monster. Sophie, do you think that that's the biggest difference between them and PSG?
Yeah, I'd say so. And if we go back to Emily's point about Lyon being the big team for so long, going into the final 2 years ago in Torino, everyone was saying, Barca's, it's Barca's. That upset Lyon. So I would be like, no, we're still like, we've won, with the record one. Yeah, and they came out in that game and obviously won that one. But with the mentality from Lyon is fantastic. And I think going into the second leg as well, with how PSG threw it away, if you will, that's too much for them to bridge. Lyon have going with the momentum. PSG, it's not even the wounded animal. I think they've just been beaten up and they're just cowering in a corner at this point.
It is what it is.
Mentality monsters.
Well, like I said, if we want to go with Lucy Bronze's philosophy, this is only halftime, no matter what the score is. How do you make a case then for PSG? Because it sounds like Soph's already given up on them and she picked them to win this time.
I think probably for me, I would start the same way. Like, they came out, they took those 2 goals early, and at one point, Lyon looked like they didn't know what to do with it. So I think a similar sort of approach, but then holding that defence and not letting it slip, because it was kind of, as soon as that 1 goal went in, it was like they just didn't know what to do. Like, I think maybe they got it in their heads that they were going to walk away with a 2-0 win, and they didn't expect Lyon to come out so quickly and to rebuttal them. But it's hard, because I think at times you don't really know what to do to stop Lyon, and I think that's the big thing, is like, what do you actually do to stop them and contain them? But I would say, get the ball to Katoto in the box and she'll score twice. She did it last time, so do it again, and then just hold that defence. I think that's the key, is that keeping that solid and not probably switching off, because I think probably that's where they fell apart, was they kind of just was like, oh, it's all right, like, we've gone through like 70-80 minutes of this, like, we can hold off, and it just falls apart. So I'd say keeping that defence as strong as possible is going to be important.
Well, so far, Emily's predictions have been quite solid. So, are you going to change yours now? Are you going over to the Lyon side?
I am. If it had been anything other than 3 goals in 6 minutes, I just think it's so far for them to come. But if they can stay on the front foot, Katoto Chewinga not take Katoto off early. Yeah, they need to go out and attack, and yeah, well, I think it's a good test of how far they've come as a team, how far they've come sort of in terms of their own mentality. But yeah, no, I'm switching to Lyon.
Oh, we got Sophie rattled. Lyon got her rattled as they got PSG rattled. She's changed her prediction, so we're both going to go with Lyon for that one. Either way, it all goes down this weekend. It's going to be a very juicy second leg of this semi-finals of the UEFA Women's Champions League. Make sure to tune in.